ministerial nominees, arguing the move means the NDC is not ready for power. Parliamentary correspondent Ibrahim Al-Hassan has the details.
And that's Dr. Dominic Ayine. Speaker is actually on the floor announcing his name as the nominee for the Attorney General's Department and Minister for Justice.
1. Dr. Cecil Tutuwaa Orson, MP, Minister Designate, Ministry of Finance. 2. John Abdullahi Jinapo, MP, Minister Designate, Ministry of Energy. 3. Dr. Dominic Akuritinga Ayine, MP, Minister Designate, Attorney General and Ministry of Justice.
To the Minority Leader and then Ranking Member for the Appointment Committee, Alexander Kwamena Afenyomakin, the piecemeal announcement of ministerial nominees by President John Dramani Mahama is unacceptable.
When the names were read out by Mr. Speaker, he read out only 3 names: the Finance Minister Designate, the Energy Minister Designate, and the Attorney General and Minister of Justice Designate. Mr. Speaker, this thoughts appointment is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that promised a 24-hour economy in opposition. They told us that they were ready for government. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Minority Leader.
In Samuel Dojiri MP and Minority Chief Whip Frank Anodompre had other concerns. He's asking the nominees to arm themselves and adequately prepare before appearing before the committee, because according to him, the Appointments Committee this time around would not be business as usual.
We on the minority side will be ready for you at the Appointment Committee. We want to caution your nominees to come prepared. It's not going to be business as usual. Come prepared.
I caught up with the acting spokesperson for the presidency, Felix Kwachofosu, and put the concerns of the Minority Leader, Alexander Kwamena Afenyomakin, to him.
This is the fastest that any president has moved by way of ministerial nominations. In fact, even before President Mahama took over, he had been taking steps to ensure that once he takes over, some, if you like, remnants of a government will be in place. He announced the oral team, he announced the security team, he put in place the staff at the office of the president, and now he's made 3 ministerial nominees. In the coming days, more nominees will be put out, and he aims to form his government as quickly as possible, because we have very, very pressing challenges across all sectors.
With the referral of these nominees to the Appointments Committee, the House, and for that matter, the country, is looking forward to the announcement of many more nominees to be attended to by the Appointments Committee of Parliament. Reporting for GH1 News from Parliament, I am Ibrahim Al-Hassan.
My colleague Ibrahim Al-Hassan there with updates on what is John Dramani Mahama's first set of ministerial nominees. So what we do know now is that 3 people have been appointed. The Minister Designate for Finance, Dr. Kasela Tuforsin, Minister Designate for Energy, John Abdullahi Jinapo, as well as the Minister Designate for Justice, who is also the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine. But let's have a conversation on this. And the nominees, what we do know is also that they, subject to parliamentary approval, they are poised to drive President Mahama's strategic agenda, focusing on economic recovery, energy stabilization, and judicial reforms. But really, what are the major issues that they have to grapple with? And that's why my colleague Emmanuel Ejabeng, he's with the research desk. He's joined us in studio now to basically look at the nominees and really what they should be looking forward to. Quite interesting positions, and I'm not surprised because, I mean, Attorney General, because John Mahama says anti-corruption is high on his agenda. Energy Minister, because already John Mahama has to deal with what was to become the return of Danso. And then Finance Minister, because, of course, we need the cash. People are really important. They are really concerned about that. But Emmanuel has been doing some digging, and he's joined us with some details. So, I mean, let's look at the nominees now. Energy, finance. As for Attorney General, they will allow him to do. But really, what are the key issues that they are likely to be confronted with?
I think what we all need to first pay attention to is the fact that Mahama is bringing people who we know them to have worked in the various sectors. So
right.
John Jinapo, before even making his way to Parliament, served as Deputy Energy Minister. Then we had Power Minister too, so you could see that there was some split of roles over there, but he was still Deputy Energy Minister. Kesa Lato-Forson served under Setekbe as his Deputy Finance Minister.
So the deputies have become substantive ministers.
More like a promotion.
Right.
He's resetting Ghana for them. We don't know whether the substantives then would have any other key positions to play, but maybe he's believing that they have learned well and they can handle matters in the various sectors. If you look at the energy sector, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at John Abdullahi Jinapo. He's confronted with the major issue, and you could see the frustration in the video we also at the inauguration. He is facing a crisis, a looming crisis, which we believe they are saying hopefully would be curtailed in the next 2 weeks. So, top of the issues for John Jinapo is Danso. Danso occasioned by fuel. Danso occasioned by fuel. Not that we don't have the generation capacity. There is the generation capacity, but then there's the need for fuel because WAPCO has to do pigging. And when we say pigging, that's to maintain its pipelines, to clean it up, to make sure that it's working.
Planned maintenance
of its pipeline. So that is the major crisis that John Jinapo has to solve. And for him, he doesn't have the luxury of time. And it's similar for Kesa Lato-Forson. We'll get to that. He has within the frame of 2 weeks to ensure that there is fuel in Ghana, liquid fuel, to power the plants when the pipelines are not working, so that we do not have a Danso crisis. And it's funny, within the 2013 to 2017 period, when we say Danso, and we have a Deputy Energy Minister who is now coming to, so he needs to reset the thinking of Ghanaians when it comes to Danso for Mahama. So it's quite critical for him. And I don't want to be in issues right now. There's a lot of pressure on him. Another issue he needs to look at is ECG. ECG is at the lower button of the distribution of power in the country. It's produced, Gridco takes it, and ECG brings it to us in our homes, although they pick it up from the Gridco lines. ECG has been an institution that has been suffering losses from 2017. 2021, they had a loss of 1.21 billion Ghana cedis. 2022, they had 10 billion Ghana cedi loss. And even before the expiration of the Akufo-Addo government, we saw Samuel Dubik Mahama resigning.
The managing director.
Yeah, he resigned. And did they appoint anyone? No, they didn't appoint anyone. So, and the issue of ECG's operations has come to bear, given that when Mahama met the World Bank delegation, he mentioned that we'll be relying on expertise from them to look at boosting efficiency in distribution of power in the country, and by largely focusing on ECG, because ECG's losses are quite serious, and so we'll be relying on World Bank to help us do that as well.
I think that is where the conversation about the privatization of ECG also came to bear.
Exactly. And for Tema Oil Refinery, I don't think anyone will miss out on that particular conversation. It's important, and for the Energy Minister, having dealt with the issue of Danso, dealt with the issue of, and you see the Danso issue, it's in many folds. You are ensuring there is efficiency in power distribution. You're ensuring that the losses that have been incurred previously are no longer being incurred. You're ensuring that the projects that have been commissioned to make our power distribution and generation in the country good are strengthened. You are looking at energy generation mix. We are moving towards renewables. So as Energy Minister, you are looking at renewable energy, not just the thermal and the hydro. We have nuclear power Ghana. What are you doing about nuclear energy? So there's so much, given that we have climate change also being topical now. So there's so much expected in that area. So Tema Oil Refinery, there's been conversations about privatization of that particular refinery, but I need to marry that particular conversation with the fact that as a global community, we are moving away from fossil fuels. So he needs to find the best strategy to ensure that TOR becomes relevant in the country. The critical issue as well for him is management of IPP debts. Somewhere 2024, government made them to restructure those debts. It's quite topical. Over 1 billion.
Yeah, Eli Plim and his guys have been on the necks of government to basically pay them their money.
Exactly. So it's for the energy minister, he needs energy policies that will reform, one, efficiency in power distribution, but two, as well, to ensure that there is enough money to make sure that the efficiency that we are seeking is even possible. So it's not just policy that he's looking at. He needs to work in tandem with the finance minister to make sure that we are receiving a lot of money. We are making sure that the systems that have been put in place are capable. And speaking of money, let me just bring in the finance minister's aspect before we get to the experts. Tutuwaa has the daunting task of raising $90 million to buy the fuel we need to power plants. Else we are going to plunge the nation into a crisis.
And the time frame he has is what? Less than 2 weeks.
Yes. To get $90 million.
From a country that is said to be broke.
Yes.
A country that does not have money.
And look at it, we are looking at the 60 billion, and a chunk of it is going to service debts and arrears. So already on the international market, you are not credit worthy. So you now have to find ways and means. And I don't think government short-term loans, means of financing like the treasury bills and everything are quite enough to raise that $90 million. So that's his first task. 2 weeks, raise $90 million to buy gas or liquid fuels, else we have a problem. Now the other thing is, Mahama is looking, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, please pardon me.
Yes.
His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, his government, together with Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, are looking to rationalize taxes. So e-levy is going, COVID levy is going, 10% is going.
And that is a conversation we need to have. But let's talk about energy. And Kodjo has joined us. He is the policy lead, petroleum and conventional energy at ASEP. Kodjo, thank you so much for joining us on Starr today this evening.
Good evening, Joshua. Thanks for having me.
Great. So really, we are looking at the appointment made by John Dramani Mahama. As he stands now, he's named John Abdullahi Jinapor as Minister Designate for Energy. What immediate steps should the incoming minister prioritize to stabilize our energy sector, especially considering the fact that now power outages, reliability issues there, and we also told about WAPCO and the issues arising. What should be the priority of the incoming energy minister?
Yeah, I mean, you've listed some of them. The incoming minister really has a very difficult job. She's coming to a sector that is critically under debt. The estimates put the debt at around some $2.5 billion. That is debt that has accumulated, and as we speak, debt continues to accumulate, and she will have to contend with how we will pay the debt that has been already accumulated, and also, most importantly, how the action that they want to take towards that end. When you look at the petroleum sector as well, the petroleum sector is actually dying, to be honest. Production has declined consistently year on year over the past 4 or 5 years, simply because the regulation has really favored politics over efficiency, to the extent that there are some blocks, discoveries that can be brought on quickly to stem the kind of decline in production that we have not focused on, because we are choosing politics. So that on that score as well, he will have to really come out with innovative strategies on how to accelerate into other sectors to provide social investment to alleviate the welfare of the people that we are spending on the energy sector. So we have to really fix where the leakage is coming from. When that is done, and we are able to assure revenue to flow through the value chain, the liquidity is improved. We are able to collect in excess of 90-95% of the revenue that we are doing. We are supposed to collect from the sale of electricity. Then now we come to the conversation of how much that we owe. We can be able to even channel some of the revenues that are coming in now to be able to pay some of the debts that we owe. But if we leave the debt accumulation problem and just be fixated on how much has been accumulated. We can always find money, and we've been doing that consistently over the past few years, making the budget pay for the under recoveries in the power sector. We can always find money to pay, but that is not a sustainable solution to the problem.
Interesting. Now, let's talk about partnerships. I mean, looking at the new minister, John Jinapor, and the task that lies ahead, what would you say he can do to collaborate with private energy firms, basically to expand electricity generation capacity and also to improve efficiency?
I mean, the energy sector is like the nerve center of any economy, and there will always be players willing and ready to be able to play within the space. What he needs to do is to create a system that allows regulation to be done without the usual politics, so that there is some regulatory certainty that if a player comes, for example, to set up a power plant, someone will not stand up arbitrarily and cancel the power purchase agreement that they have, and they will have to spend time in arbitration and all of those things, leading to judgment debts on the part of Ghana. And so those certainties in regulation and also creating the environment that is able to attract. I mean, right now, if you look at the petroleum sector, for example, we are litigating almost all the players within the space in one form of arbitration or the other. Those things actually send wrong signals about the kind of receptiveness we have here for businesses coming from outside. So doing away with some of those things and creating an environment that attracts people will definitely do that. Of course, the multinationals are also willing. The World Bank, the African Development Bank, the U.S. government, and all of them are equally invested in our energy sector, and they've been supporting reforms. The World Bank, for example, has been doing the energy sector recovery program over the last few years, pumping in money for reforms. Those are partnerships that he can leverage on to be able to push through some of the things that he needs to push through. Of course, within the local space as well, there are a lot of stakeholders that have fantastic ideas on how some of the reforms should take place. I should expect that he will open up himself to consultations from such stakeholders to be able to pick the best minds and ideas to push through some of these reforms.
So finally, from where you sit and having analyzed our energy sector for all this while, do you anticipate significant shifts in energy policy under this administration?
I should say the policy may stay the same, but the mechanics of how the policy is delivered may change because of the difference in orientation that you have from one administration over the other. So the broad strokes of policy may remain the same, but how we do the business of implementing policy is something that I expect changes to come from.
Well, I'm sure that in the coming days we'll get to understand exactly how the strategies will also go. But thank you so much. And we'll be keeping a very keen eye on that and get back to you as and when we have more developments on how government intends to run the energy sector. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Father.
Right. So that's
Kodjo Yaoche. He is policy lead, petroleum and conventional energy at the African Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Ima, convinced?
He does right by doing justice to the issues,
Right.
and then you see he takes a position that tells you really that it's not going to be a smooth road.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a smooth road. And then I'm just thinking that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had already envisaged that more reason is bringing someone who was in the sector,
Right.
in a direct role over there. Some people may think maybe there is someone else who's good. Whenever there's a ministerial appointment, people have thoughts about suitability and all of that, whether there's a much stronger hand. But this person, Honorable John Abdullahi Jinapor, has served as Deputy Minister for Energy. He has seen the issues, and so
He has a fair idea.
he has a fair idea. And if he's confronted with the same issues that they were confronted with in a much more different way now, Yeah, perhaps he's the best person.
Because, mind you, John Dramani Mahama and the NDC have maintained that they solved Danso.
Yes. So they are bringing the one who helped them solve it to come and fix it now.
Okay. Away from energy, let's talk about the appointment of Ato Forson as the finance minister. You mentioned that he has a daunting task of having to raise about $90 million in about 2 weeks to solve the energy crisis that the country is faced with. But he also has a bigger task of recovering the economy. I mean, we all heard the phrase, "Yet is a comedian." We sat we never saw anything.
We never saw anything.
How is Ato Forson's appointment going to make any difference? But before that, I mean, talk to us about Ato Forson. What are the key issues that he'll be faced with?
You know, Ato Forson has served as Deputy Finance Minister. And if you recall, the NDC government in opposition mentioned the reason why they brought him to serve as minority leader then was because of his grasp and his knowledge on economic matters. And they believe that the election 2024 was going to be heavily centered on economy and its matters. And so he coming in to take control now, one would say was expected because the NDC had already signaled that this is our guy in opposition. And so in power it means that he's the one to lead it. But you see, what that has put Ato Forson in now is in the position where people are not going to think about the macro economy, but they'll think about their personal economy.
Exactly.
Because now people are believing that with Ato Forson at the helm of affairs, my pockets are going to get better. And that particular expectation alone is one big challenge that he needs to deal with. He needs to manage the finances of the country in a manner that will not lead to so much of populist ideas.
Okay.
But he rather put in place the measures, fiscal-wise, monetary-wise, that would ensure that we will get there, but we'll take it slowly.
We will certainly get there, but let's go over the phone lines now and engage Professor Patrick Isumin. He is an economist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, very much for making time to speak to us. First of all, what do you make of Ato Forson's appointment as a finance minister?
Good evening and good evening to listeners. Well, I think that it seems like it's a reasonable choice. He has the experience and he has the requisite training and background. He has, I think he's been a deputy finance minister before. He served on the finance committee. But also, he has, his training background is quite interesting. He has a PhD, a specialization in finance. He has a master's in taxation. And he also has a master's in economics. So in the finance ministry, you need all of those skills to function effectively. You need to have background in public sector accounting, taxation, and of course, you need to know a fair amount about how an economy works. So on that score, I think in terms of qualification and experience, you can say that it's a good choice. But time will tell how well he'll perform in that sector.
But Prof, I mean, looking at the country's economic status as we speak, what policy measures do you think that Dr. Forson should prioritize in a bit to address Ghana's high-level debt especially and secure economic stability?
Well, he doesn't have, given the difficulties we are in, he doesn't have the luxury of specializing. I think he has to do so many things at the same time, and very quickly also. So I think you mentioned the debt and the fiscal consolidation. That's going to be very important. Because at the moment, we don't really have, the government does not have much fiscal space. We need to raise funds, revenue to spend. And, juggling that with the promise to remove some taxes is something that's going to be very interesting to see how he's going to manage that. But otherwise, I think if you put that aside, I think the energy sector problems should also be the top of his agenda. Part of it is really a liquidity problem. Being able to buy the needed funding. And then I think he also needs to keep an eye on the SOEs, the quasi-financial institutions, the SOEs that are engaged in quasi-financial activities. That has been a drain on the public purse, especially Cocoa Board. Even though Cocoa Board, in the previous administration, I believe Cocoa Board had been put under the Agric Ministry. But, much of what they do, raising funds and implementing some, greater financial activities, he has to get a handle on all of this and make sure that while he's sitting in the finance ministry, other units within the government are not, incurring expenditures on behalf of the government. So he has a big task ahead of him.
All right. Now, a lot of people are interested in we managing our public finances, and with Ghana being under the IMF-supported program, what are the key risks and opportunities that Atuforsen will be presented with?
Well, I think he will inherit an IMF program that, compared to a couple of years ago, we've seen in particular public finances and the deficit being brought under control. And the moment we finalize the debt exchange, the debt position should also be fairly reasonable. Those are opportunities for him. But he's also inheriting an economy that is really battered. It's been battered by some of the decision making that we've seen in the past. And there are still significant challenges. So some of the challenges you have is that he wouldn't have a lot of fiscal space to spend to implement programs. It will take a while before the government will be able to really put public finances in such a position that they will have enough funds to implement the programs for which they've been voted into power. And I think that is something that he's going to have to learn to manage. And also manage Ghanaians' expectations. Yes, it's a very significant mandate that the government will have. But I think early on he has to let Ghanaians understand that it's going to take a while before they'll be able to implement some of the programs that they have outlined.
Okay, now, Prof, during the NDC's campaign, they talked about cutting off some draconian taxes. That is the description they gave to these taxes, like the e-levy, the COVID levy, the 10% betting tax, and the emission levy. But what strategies would you say that the government can adopt in a bid to improve revenue collection in the face of our economic difficulties without necessarily overburdening citizens?
Well, I think you have to understand that if you put together all the expected revenues from all the taxes that they have mentioned that they will remove, the good is that those ones are not fetching us as much. I think in 2025, all those, the three, e-levy, COVID levy, and the betting tax, I don't think they will fetch us up to 10 billion. And that is just around 5% of what will be projected to be collected. So in principle, scrapping those ones, you should be able to find ways to plug the hole. I think one of the things we should do, and the President did mention rationalization of the taxes, I hope that will include removing some of the exemptions, the litany of exemptions that we see, and then also improving the enforcement. But removing just a few of the exemptions alone will be able to raise multiples of what we are thinking about. And then also, if you're able to make progress on the implementation of the property rates and the property taxes, I think you'll be able to comfortably remove those tax handles and still be able to raise significant revenue.
Now, if Atuforsen is appointed is given the ministerial position as the Minister for Finance, what would you say he can do in a bid to curb Ghana's inflation? Because as far as we understand, we have taken an ascendancy on the inflation for the fourth consecutive time.
Well, I think the inflation has become a stubborn thing, and I don't think it's become a symptom of the general economic malaise that we have. So the rising cost of doing business, if you look at the numbers in recent times, you see that inflation of domestically produced items is way higher than inflation on imported items. That tells you domestic cost of production is an issue. But we know that in the last couple of years, food inflation has been a major source of inflation. That tells you that we need to make more investment in the agri sector, especially food production. And I think that is where, for me, it should be together with energy sector. Those should be the immediate things that should be tackled. Because rising cost of food is something that touches every Ghanaian household, and it's a big problem. And we've been enduring this for the last couple of years. The issue is that if you postpone making those kind of investments, we only have a specific planting season. And if we miss the opportunity to make the investment, then you are going to have another year of rising food costs. So I think that is something that you should really tackle. And when we talk about making investment in food production, it's not only farm inputs. The ones that ensure that we are producing more farm gain, but it includes making investment that will improve storage and transportation, the road network. So when we are constructing roads, we have to be strategic in making sure that roads linking the primary food production areas to the main market centers. So some of the political considerations in this big is, well, the interchanges are great, but I think that.
Hello, Prof. Can you hear me? Unfortunately, we lost him there. That was Professor Patrick Esuming. He's an economist and a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. So that is what he had to say. I found it very interesting that, he talked about the fact that scrapping off all of these taxes that Mahama has promised to do will not be detrimental to the country's economy. Because I've heard people say that the e-levy, for instance, gave the country some good money.
Yeah.
What are your findings saying?
Well, per document, let me not even say a document, per a certain narration we saw, e-levy and COVID levy combined, they gave the country in 2023 some 3.2 billion Ghana cedis. That's good money. That's good money. But I do agree with him that if we are looking as a country to rationalize our tax system, a kind of how do we call it? I'm getting the right. The exemptions. The exemptions we give, we need to look at the exemptions.
Right, because we lose so much.
Yeah, too much. And I always say that, the 3 billion we are getting from the IMF, I think somewhere in 2022 or 2023, I did a certain research on the amounts of money we lose to corruption in this country. It's just about the same thing.
Right.
Every year. So there's money in Ghana. I think widening the tax net with just a few tax cuts and then strengthening of some of the tax lines, we will be fine.
We'll be fine.
Because if you are burdening people with so much taxes, there would be always the thought to evade the taxes. So you don't get more. You'd have a smaller percentage paying.
Right.
But if you make the system a bit free, not too much taxes, not too much burden on the populace. Oh, wait a minute, I can pay this. So I feel like with that, it would help. So we need to widen the tax net, cut back on some of the tax measures, look at our exemptions as a country, and then we can plow back enough. Because we don't have so much space to spend. And you need to remember that in the Mahama government as well, there's a number of freebies promised. Right. There's free, no academic fee for first year students.
Yes, so the less stress thing.
Yes, so there's a number of freebies still there that to force them to find money for.
Free university for disabled people.
Exactly.
So
for the entire 4 years.
People sometimes look at the statistics, it's not much. But when you go down and see the numbers, you realize that it's actually.
John Mama says he'll cut down on corruption and expenditure and he'll be fine. So we'll wait and see how fine he will be with that. Well, thank you so much for breaking it down for us. Emmanuel I've been with the research desk here. Meanwhile, government has slammed Dr. Kabiru Mahama, a former economic advisor to former President former Vice President Bawumia, for rubbishing claims of inadequate fuel for power generation. Now, the Mahama administration has accused the outgoing administration of deliberately failing to restock fuel before exiting power, despite assurances to do so during transition meetings. Now, speaking to parliamentary correspondent Ibrahim Al-Hassan, the Walewale MP charged the new administration to fix the challenge and stop the purposeless lamentation.
Gravely unfortunate, to say the least, that the president started with this particular lamentation. You promised a country certain goods. You knew you campaign on the economy, you campaign on the ills, you campaign on the fact that you created a perception that the country was broke. So you know, ab initio, that in quote, the country was broke. So you don't come to power first day, you begin to complain. It's the responsibility of government to ensure that our lives are on. If the outgoing government leaves you with 1 hour of power, it is your duty to make sure that the power continue every single day. If you have to find money to make sure that you pay them for their lives to be on every single day, you have to do that. At least they did not hand the country to them with Danso. So if it is only 3 hours of power that the fuel can contain, it is their responsibility to make sure that we get everyday supply of fuel for the lives to be on. So I don't think that purposeless lamentation is something that Ghanaians are ready to tolerate. There was transition. The role of transition is to preempt that this is going to come in the next coming days and to start making preparation for that. So they are purposeless lamentation.
So you think this is failure on the part of the NDC's transition team?
It is a failure to take responsibility, a responsibility that has been stored on them by the good people of Ghana. That is basically what it is. And I think that if you are a doctor, you claim you have the right acumen, you have the right expertise, you have what it takes to survive a patient. The patient has been handed over to you. You don't go lamenting that I did not have a needle, I do not have a shrink, I do not have infusions. Those complaints will not be tolerated by any well-meaning Ghanaian.
Dr. Kabiru Mahama is the Waliwali MP, but acting spokesperson for the presidency, Felix Kwakye would not take the assertion lying down. According to Diabro Asebu Kwamankese MP, such a posture is the reason why the NPP lost miserably. Felix Kwakye, however, assured that the emergency meeting with players in the power sector has yielded positive results in averting the power crisis, at least in the interim.
Due to what can best be described as dereliction of duty on the part of the outgone MPP administration, we were left in a very parlous state as far as our energy situation is concerned. There had been some planned maintenance that had been rescheduled to this month, but between the period of the rescheduling and the period that we are speaking now, government ought to have made efforts. The past government ought to have made efforts to procure fuel to compensate for the loss of gas that was going to arise because of the planned maintenance. This did not happen, despite assurances that the government gave to the transition team and to the now President Mahama himself. So it required some prompt and immediate response. And to that end, yesterday, an emergency meeting was convened among all the key stakeholders in the energy sector. And a technical team was charged with coming up with a solution within hours of the completion of that meeting. As I speak, there's a roadmap that has been submitted by the technical committee, and government is confident that if that roadmap is followed, we'll be able to avert what would have been a severe electricity crisis.
Would that include rescheduling of the maintenance schedule?
Well, all options are on the table. Every measure that needs to be taken to stave off what will be a discomforting series of power outages is being explored to enable Ghanaians avoid this sort of situation.
Yeah, what would you say to somebody who says this should have been made public by the transition team on your side?
It was made public. Okay. We have been talking about the energy sector since God knows when. It was one of the key issues on which we campaigned. We have always known that the power sector or the energy sector as a whole is in shambles. We spoke at length about the misuse of ESLA funds, how the debt in the sector has become unsustainable. We are talking close to $2.5 billion worth of debt, which translates to above 30 billion Ghana cedis. We are talking about the lack of adequate investments and hostility towards investors in the sector, which has resulted in some systemic weaknesses that continues to endanger the sector. These are matters that we've spoken about at length. At the transition team level, the matters were disclosed. The now Minister Designate for Energy, Honorable John Jinapor, has been at pains to stress that the energy sector was in serious difficulty and had called on the previous government to do its duty by taking steps to ensure that the systems were running and that Ghanaians received around-the-clock electricity supply. So we cannot be faulted for not voicing concern.
I've spoken to Dr. Kabiru Mahama, who was economic advisor to the former vice president. He says even if you are left with 1 hour worth of fuel, you are in charge. Fix it.
So how does he make such a pronouncement? One has to be reasonable in public discourse. You cannot expect that something that you should have done as far back as October, which you failed to do, should be done on the first day that the government takes over. When you procure or you place an order for fuel, It has not arrived the very day you place the order. These are not off-the-shelf items that you go and pick. So Dr. Kabiru's statements are clearly not informed. I'm sure he's dabbling in mere propaganda. But I think that we've gotten to a stage where we need to respect the people of Ghana. You cannot have reneged on your responsibility in the manner that they have done, endanger the power supply situation, expose Ghanaians to severe suffering, and then turn around to make such casual statements. I don't think that it shows sufficient respect to the people of Ghana. And it is one of the reasons why they lost in the manner that they did. One would have hoped that by now, the magnitude of the defeat and the humiliation would have compelled them to rewrite the script and go back to basics and show some respect to the people of Ghana. But they do not appear willing to do so. And therefore, we as a government, willing and able to do what has to be done to ensure that we avert the situation. That's exactly what we are doing.
Ministerial nominees, 3 of them. Afeni Markin says just 3. Why?
Well, this is the fastest that any president has moved by way of ministerial nominations. In fact, even before President Mahama took over, he had been taking steps to ensure that once he takes over, some, if you like, remnants of a government will be in place. He announced the oral team, he announced the security team, he put in place the staff at the office of the president, and now he's made 3 ministerial nominees. In the coming days, more nominees will be put out. And he aims to form his government as quickly as possible because we have very, very pressing challenges across all sectors, the energy sector, the economy itself. Every bit of our national life is in severe stress. And so the earlier the government is in place, the better. That is why President Mahama is proceeding at such pace, even if he is doing so with significant levels of meticulousness.
Is it signs of things to come as with the newness, freshness? Because many of these appointees at best were deputy ministers.
Well, President Mahama has promised the leanest government in Ghana's history. He has promised to put in place an efficient team that has the requisite expertise, experience, and know-how to be able to turn around the dire situation that we are in as a country.
You heard the Member of Parliament for Asibu Abra Asibu Kwamankese, Felix Ufusukwache. He is the acting spokesperson of the presidency. But let's talk about the energy crisis and the challenges there. President John Dramani Mahama, he's assuring Ghanaians there will be no energy crisis, popularly known as Danso, during his second term. According to him, his government is committed to resolving the crisis and preventing a return to the era of frequent power outages. Now, he gave that assurance at the National Convention of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission Ghana early today. Listen to John Dramani Mahama.
Of the West African gas pipeline was supposed to take place in October last year. At the intervention of this government, it was postponed till January. This is a long delayed maintenance and has to be urgently done. But what it means is that there will be no gas available for all our generating plants in the east of Ghana, that is the Tema Enclave, because it will have curtailed the gas coming from Nigeria and the gas that comes in the reverse flow from our gas processing plants in the west. And so it means that the thermal generating plants in the Tema Enclave would have no access to gas. And normally, to forestall blackouts because of the loss of almost 2,000 megawatts of power, we have to make provision for fuel. And this is light crude oil, heavy fuel oil, and distillate fuel. Unfortunately, enough provision was not made for this eventuality. When the fuel arrives, it takes time to import it, 3 weeks to place an order and get it delivered. And when it arrives, you have to treat the fuel for another week and a half to make it ready for use in the generating plants. And so there's a threat of power outages. But my brothers and sisters, don't despair. Like I said, you elected us to solve the problems, not to put the blame on anybody else or to shoulder you with those problems. And so yesterday I called a meeting of all the stakeholders in the electricity value chain. And they have been sitting since yesterday to today to come out with innovative solutions so that we're able to keep the lights on. And so I can assure you with some of the ideas they've come up with, we would make sure that your lights stay on and that we do not have doomso, as you popularly call it.
So you heard the assurance from the president of the land, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. He says, Charlie, there'll be no doomso. Well, we'll talk about education right after this.
Starr Today, first, fast, and credible.
Now, the feeding situation in senior high schools across the country has gone south, with Conference of Heads of Assisted Senior High Schools, CHAS, insisting parents should provide students with adequate provisions. Now, CHAS, in a communique in December 2024, asked the Ghana Education Service to reconsider the reopening date of senior high schools from the earlier January 3 scheduled date, citing financial constraints. 5 days after the resumption of schools, the National Secretary of CHAS, Primus Baru, has revealed that the feeding situation has worsened and is appealing to parents to give the awards food to school because the food supplies are not enough. Well, let's go over the phone lines now and have a conversation on the back of that, because we have Peter Nochu Kodjo. He's a member of Parliament for the Akache North constituency and former ranking member on the Education Committee of Parliament, to help us better understand what is happening in the senior high schools across the country with regards feeding. He's on the line now. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Now, what will be your initial reaction to this disturbing developments? Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. So I'm asking what your initial reaction will be to the fact that CHAS has given a directive for parents to give food to the awards to go to school.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I was surprised when I heard that information from CHAS. I got surprised because for a very long time now, we had not heard them make such comment on issues as far as feeding is concerned in the senior high schools. But all the same, I think we're in a new regime. Everybody is beginning to find the lost voice, and it is good they have come out. But I think at a time that they should have waited on government, the new government, to see what plans we have as far as the students or the free senior high school is concerned. It shows clearly that the previous government failed in its responsibility to the success of the free senior high school. This is because at the time they were about to reopen, I think CHAS came out that the reopening of schools should be postponed in view of the fact that monies had not been released to them, but they were forced by the GES and the Minister of Education to allow students to come to school. And these are the consequences that we are facing. I think government will be up to the task. We will make sure that the necessary steps are put in place so that we can feed our students who are on campus. We know they have gone through a lot of challenges where they were not given the voice to speak. We will give them the voice so that they can speak on issues that affect the smooth running of their schools. But I only hope that they will do it, or they will use that voice responsibly. But in the meantime, steps are being taken to make sure that measures are put in place to correct what wrong has been done. We cannot continue to leave our students hungry in our schools. So within the next few days, I think the CHAS will hear from us.
Okay, but are you in any way suggesting that the whole feeding situation in the senior high schools was being politicized? Because you say that it looks as if CHAS has now found its lost voice. But, I mean, they just were not too vocal with the issue. And that was really a situation that was happening on senior high school campuses.
Yeah, as I was saying, these are issues they could have raised long ago, which they never did. And as I'm saying, we only need to make sure that this does not occur. We have inherited a lot of challenges in almost every sector, and gradually and speedily we will be able to solve those challenges so that our schools can run smoothly academic work can continue, so that we make sure that the benefit of free education or free senior high school is felt in our schools better than it had been.
Earlier in your submission, you talked about steps being taken to address the issue. But before we come to that, do you think it was a good idea for the Ministry of Education to stick to the January 3 reopening date? I mean, despite the fact that Charles had appealed to the ministry to have it postponed, given the issues that they were confronted with.
Well, that was the government at the time. They were in charge. So what they did, they thought was right. That was what they did. But which actually was not the best, because the money they promised them, I don't know how much they were able to give them. So until we get the full report on what happened before the students were forced into schools, we will be in a position to address it.
But as it stands now, we understand that food supplies have still not reached the senior high schools, and you talked about steps that you have taken. Kindly run us through some of the steps that you say you have taken to avert the situation.
No, I said steps will be taken soon to remedy the situation. That was what I said.
Okay, but I mean, in the interim, what solutions are you proposing? Because food supplies have still not reached senior high school campuses.
Yes, I think just give us some time, and within the shortest possible time, you will hear from us. Because meetings are being held to see how best we can resolve the matter. So give us some few days, and then you will hear from us.
Finally, we understand that Charles is faced with some financial constraints associated with the whole feeding in senior high schools. How do you plan to deal with this now that you are in charge?
Well, as I said, we are in the process of resolving the matter. So there are many or several options open to us. That's why I said that you just give us a few days, you will be able to hear from us what steps we are making or we are taking. It's going to be made public so that we can all look at it and then see the result that will come. Because as at now, many of the schools have shortages of food items. There's no money to buy food on the market. So it's a whole lot of challenges that we are facing. And I can assure you that we are up to the task, and very soon the situation will come under control.
All right, thank you very much. That was Peter Kodjo. He's a member of parliament for the Akache North constituency and also a former ranking member on the education committee in parliament.
And it's quite disturbing, the situation where parents now have to really pack food for their wards.
Because, you know, the norm has always been that once your ward is going to school, you give them some provisions.
You know, something to augment the food that they would be taking in school.
Exactly.
But now it looks like you have to prepare them what they need to eat, and whatever the school gives will be the augmenting to what they are bringing to school. And then you ask yourself, how free then is the free senior high school policy? Because as it stands now, I mean, just saying this, and I'm really feeling bad for the current administration, because in a way I feel that they are confronted with a lot of situations.
Just 2 days after being sworn into office.
That's okay. Well, today's 9.
Today's 9.
Oh, I think we should find out from Malik. Because I remember Malik saying that 2 days after John Mahama is sworn in, he's going to make sure that Chinia is jailed. We have to find out where that one lies. But that you just reminded me.
I'd rather hold my thoughts on that.
You just reminded me of the 2 days. But I mean, it's quite disturbing, the situation in the schools. But let's have a further discussion on this phenomenon. Dr. Peter Pate Anti has joined me on the phone lines now. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. So I mean, all of this with Charles calling on parents to beef up food supplies for their wards who come into school, among others. From where you sit and all that you've analyzed in the education sector, does this come as a surprise, looking at the fact that, well, we said that we were okay with free senior high school and the way it was being implemented?
Well, for me, this is not a surprise, because these are information that have been available to some of us for a long time. Unfortunately, when these issues were raised, we did not even get the support of Charles. We didn't get the support of Charles. We didn't get the support of governments. We didn't get the support of any other institution, just the media that gave us the opportunity to constantly remind Ghanaians that there are a lot of challenges that the policy is going through that needs urgent attention. So it is refreshing that Charles have come out to indicate to now talk about their challenges, and they've opened the door for all of us to get involved in this discussion and then find a possible way out of the challenges that the policy is going through. And more importantly, it indicates that technically there are two sectors that are now in urgent need of government's attention: the energy sector and the education sector. The education sector, because now we have our children in school that we are not certain whether they are going to or not. And to even buttress this point, we are being told that by the authorities in the various secondary schools that parents need to give their wards more food to be able to do that. That's why some of us are calling for government to pay special attention to the challenge that is happening at the education sector, just as they are doing for the energy sector. Because we cannot all sit back and then fold our hands and hope that the current structure and system in the education authority would be able to handle this. I'm reliably informed that last night circulars went out requesting headmasters to indicate the amount of food that they would need. They have waited till this time when the students are on campus and now asking headmasters to do what? To now fill some Google form to let them know the amount of food and then other items that they will need. This means that they are not capable of handling the situation, and as such, the current administration should, as a matter of urgency, constitute an ad hoc committee to see to it that the children in our secondary schools are fed and fed well. All the things that are needed by child should be provided to them, so that there will be some kind of a conducive atmosphere for the students to undertake the academic work.
Right. But Doc, you mentioned that, Charles basically knew this all along and remained quiet. But, to what end?
Yes, I don't know. This issue, it's been coming since 2021. Okay, maybe we'll have to get time, and then we'll have to sit down and then walk the public through the kind of challenge that this policy have gone through, that the public were kept out of. It's been coming since 2021. Charles has been aware. Charles has been writing privately, let me put it that way, to the relevant authorities to address the situation. And in all instances, they were not so much forthcoming to in terms of communicating their challenges to the public. So partially, I would always blame Charles, but I say that since they have been able to now come out, we need to find a way forward in addressing this issue. I know the NDC is talking about for having a consultative meeting with stakeholders to look at the future of the free education. That is fine, but that is something that I think I foresee will happen in the next 2-3 months, because we need a Minister of Education there. We need the heads of various agencies in the education sector before some of these things will come up. So for now, the children are in school. We are being told that some of them do not have food items at all. We are being told that some of them, the items are not adequate. They need to go through the academic work, because we do not want to also distort academic calendar. Calls by Charles and other relevant authorities to GES to hold on with the opening of the school did not materialize. So now the only option is for government to treat this as an emergency situation, put together an ad hoc committee, and then allow the ad hoc committee to help solve this issue before we even talk about the future of the free senior high school.
Now, you mentioned that what is happening in the education sector should be treated as an emergency, as attention is also given to the energy sector. John Mahama says that in 2 weeks he would let us know the full complement of his cabinet. How soon do you think that we should know our Minister of Education? And for the current situation in the education sector, what sort of minister will we need to help John Mahama realize his vision for the sector?
This is an interesting question. So we are giving the president for 2 weeks, and I think today three names have come out for finance, I think energy, and then Attorney General, I was thinking that education would have been added because that is also a critical area that is going to. CITAG is also on strike, right? The College of Education Teachers Union. It's also on strike. So I was thinking that the education minister would have been added so that quickly the person would move full swing and start address some of the challenges that the sector is going through. But what kind of minister are we looking for? For me, I think we need somebody who listens. We need somebody who understands the education system but listens more. Most of the time, the problem that the political parties have faced is that they have a team that writes their manifesto, and they have a team. And when it comes to appointment, a different person is asked to head the ministry. And in doing that, the person might not be so much addressed with the rationale, the reasoning, the kind of analysis that went into some of the things that were promised in that particular sector. So I think the person should be somebody coming from the manifesto committee, and should be somebody who understands the education sector, and more importantly, somebody who's got a very good human relations, because the sector deals with humans. It deals with various unions that have different challenges, and if you are not somebody who listens, somebody who is very sharp in listening and making yourself available to understand situations, we will not be able to make a headway in the education sector. So I'm hoping that the president, with his good judgment, will give us somebody who listens, somebody who understands the education system, and somebody who knows the current trends in education and knows where our education system is heading towards. If we get somebody like that, I think that the person would help us, first and foremost, address the teething challenges in the sector and also move us to the realization of our goal in 2030.
So Professor Donna Jane is now Vice President, very historic, first of its kind in our nation. Who else do you think can be able to step up?
Well, I will not be able to mention names now because I think there are a lot of names that are being put around. But for me, my first variable that I'll look out for somebody coming to the education sector is somebody who has a good human relations. It's going to help us because there are a lot of agitations in the sector, and you need somebody who can relate well with people, somebody who can put himself in the shoes of the people, and even when the person is not able to get the monies or fulfill the request of the people, the way he treats them shows them respect. The people would appreciate and then hold on with whatever strike or whatever it is that they are going to do. So I cannot mention names, but I know that the person who should head the education sector in this critical moment should be somebody who listens and somebody who is ready to learn and move all of us together towards the realization of our educational goals.
And so you stick your neck out?
No, I won't do that. But when the name is mentioned, let's have a conversation.
Definitely. I would be looking forward to that conversation. But thank you so much for your time this evening.
You're welcome.
Right, so that's Dr. Peter Pate Anti. He is the executive director of the Institute for Energy. Education studies.
You are so obsessed with energy. Do you have lights in your house?
I do, but I don't like it when the lights go out because I can't sleep.
Right.
When the heat, global warming, I can't sleep when it's hot. So energy, John Mahama has promised, and so I hope that he sticks to that.
I hope
but
so too.
Who do you think is likely to make candidates for the education ministry?
That's a very dicey one, honestly, because I paid attention to the two ranking members on the committee in the past parliaments. I'm talking about Clement Apak and of course we spoke to Nochu Kotoi.
Yeah.
These are the two names that honestly come to mind. I don't know if there's anybody that has been so vocal and shown that
Blackwell was deputy minister.
I don't think that he will be looking at the education ministry now.
Oh, why? He's now doing oral.
Exactly.
But oral, we are told by Joyce Bauer that the mandate of oral ends when the Attorney General takes office. So right after Parliament vets Dr. Dominic Ayeni, and then he's sworn into office, forget it. Oral is done with this way.
So
Kodjo will be free.
On the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament.
But he was Deputy Education Minister as well.
He may want to do Foreign Affairs now. How do we know?
Well, the prerogative of John Dramani Mahama. So we'll allow him.
We are waiting. But let's talk about something else now, because a group calling itself the Positive Transparency and Accountability Movement Africa has petitioned President Mahama demanding Following the dismissal of the Electoral Commission chairperson and her deputies, the group accuses them of causing financial loss to the state, creating a constitutional crisis, and engaging in misconduct and abuse of public office after the procurement of a new biometric voter device and the compilation of a new voters register before the 2020 general election. The petition adds that the expenditure was unnecessary as the 2016 voter register and biometric devices were robust and fit for purpose. Let's go over the phone lines now and engage the president of the Positive Transparency and Accountability Movement Africa, Ebenezer K. Havo. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. What really are your concerns with the Electoral Commission and her deputies?
Thank you. Good evening to your listeners and your viewers also. My name is Ebenezer Havo, president of Positive Transparency and Accountability Movement Ghana or Africa, as you did mention. You are asking of our concern with the Electoral Commission. To be honest with you, we don't have any personal issues or anything against the Electoral Commission. But the Constitution of Ghana, they have done something that has violated the Constitution of Ghana, which we brought it up to be dealt with. Please.
Hello, sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm listening to you.
Okay, I think I lost you for a moment.
Yes, I said, personally, we don't have any issue against the Electoral Commissioner and its deputies. But the Constitution of Ghana, which established the institution of the Electoral Commission, they have reached certain procedures and which we are in disagreement with. And that brought about our petition to the president to split.
Okay, but if you say that the issues, dates as far back as 2020, why are you now raising concerns?
Because in 2020, we raised a concern and we have petitioned President Akufo-Addo on that, but no response, no action has been made towards that progress. So, since there is a change of wave of government now, we thought it's very prudent and very necessary to petition the president now to take action on those matters who bothered on human rights and election matters and the freedom of transparency and accountability of our electoral process.
Okay, you say that you petitioned former President Akufo-Addo in 2020. Who received the petition, and when exactly did you deliver that petition?
To be honest with you, I didn't write that petition by myself, but a colleague of ours wrote it. But
you are the president of the association. I'm sure you may have had an idea what transpired when the petition was presented.
It's not Positive Transparency and Accountability who wrote that petition, please. For a point of record, it's not ours who wrote that petition, but other institutions that wrote the petition. And we have said nothing was done about it, please. Let me put it on record like that.
All right. So this petition that you are giving to President Mahama, who exactly received this petition?
The secretary to the president received the petition, please.
Secretary to the president?
Yes, the secretary. You have the petition before you. It can be received by the secretary of to the president, please.
But are you referring to Dr. Callistus Mahama?
Come again?
Are you talking about Dr. Callistus Mahama?
His officers receive it on his behalf, please. We have administrators which work with, so they receive it on his behalf.
All right. Thank you very much.
But before we let go of you, I just want to find out briefly from you. As it stands now, Ablekuma North coalition has not been finished, and you want the EC chair out. Don't you think that would also add up to the mistrust in the commission if another person takes over when we are not truly done with the 2024 general elections?
These are some of the issues we are raising, because if the person is competent and is doing his work fully, we may not have elections by now we will still be recollating election results. And Abekuma is an example that you stated. And we have catch up that in our petition also, that we condemn it also. It is inappropriate, and it doesn't fit the commissioner status as we have in the past. Dr. Afarijan, you can bear with me, have done his work diligently and competently with regard with the laws of which they have set for themselves to work with. But what we see now, the current EC have put aside his own CI, the CI 127, and doing outside, using its own rules and discretion to be guiding the process, which is unfair to other candidates and other political parties. And we civil society organizations, we are not partisans, and we have to come in and speak. So that's what exactly we are doing.
Right. So you believe that the timing of this will not affect anything, even when there are a myriad of court cases on this particular election?
We know that there is a lot of court cases in regard to this. But if the petition is being dealt with and it is removed and the deputies, a new person can easily take over, as it has been done in 2017. 2018, Chalawase was out, and to continue the job of Chalawase, we didn't have any problem. So I don't think it will be any case to that. The institution will run it effectively if she is out and the deputies are out. Because based on political biasness, this is the reason why we are calling for her removal. Starr have been without a representative for 4 years. You can attest to the fact, and they have gone to court to seek remedy from court, but it hasn't prevailed. So
okay,
because of the biasness and the discrimination aspect of the EC, that causes those things. So we are boldly calling on the president.
Hello, Ebenezer. Well, Ebenezer have there, but I guess the point is well made. They want the EC chair out. Well, they're not alone, because a group calling itself Care Ghana is also demanding the immediate resignation of the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare, over his alleged supervision of recollation exercises in the country. Speaking to Starr News, Executive Director of Care Ghana, David Kumiado, urged the Election Security Task Force to adopt a proactive approach to avert recurrent post-electoral violence across the country.
Is deeply concerned about the repeated incidents of military overreach in electoral matters. Such actions not only threaten Ghana's democracy, but also erode the public trust in state institutions tasked with maintaining law and order. The time for structural reform in the Ghana Police Service to address the increasing complexities in modern-day policing is urgent. In light of recent challenges faced by the police service, including its inability to adequately manage critical incidents such as electoral-related clashes, unlawful electoral conduct such as vote buying and vote selling, and growing public concern over law enforcement, it has become evident that the current structure in the leadership of the Ghana Police Service requires significant improvement to meet demands of modern society. We believe that the foundation of a professional and effective police service lies in the quality of its leadership. To this end, we advocate for an introduction of a dynamic, non-partisan, and experienced leadership capable of responding to the evolving security needs of the nation.
So you heard David Kumiado, he's Executive Director of Care Ghana. Well, so an official portrait of President John Dramani Mahama has been released by the Office of the President. Now, according to a release issued and signed by acting spokesperson Felix Kwachofosu, the portrait captures the essence of President Mahama's leadership and commitment to the people of Ghana. And so if you've not seen the portrait, quickly go on starfm.com.gh. We have the portrait of John Dramani Mahama, the official portrait. In 2012 to 2016, his official portrait was of him in a suit. and I believe a red tie, a black suit, red tie, with a young John Dramani Mahama in there. But this
Not
new
so
one, well, still comparatively, but this new one has a picture of John Mahama in a political suit, or kaftan, as we call it, and it's what, like silver gray? I don't know the color. Tutuwaa, you know colors. I'm colorblind partially.
Let me see.
And there's a green one also, but we'll go to that shortly, and Ima will put that on Facebook for you to also see. But then there's the statement that accompanied this particular one.
So it says that the Office of the President announces the release of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama's official portraits. The portrait captures the essence of President Mahama's leadership and commitment to the people of Ghana. It will serve as a symbol of national pride and unity, reflecting the values and aspirations of our great nation. Ministries, departments, agencies, private businesses and companies, and the general public are kindly informed that the government has not and will not contract any company or individual to produce framed pictures of the official portrait in bulk for distribution.
Yeah, so this is the picture.
Okay.
And the statement says it captures the what?
Let me find it. President Mahama's leadership and commitment to the people of Ghana.
So what about the picture captures leadership and commitment? I don't know.
Maybe the Spanish gray suit.
No, it's commitment.
Until now,
and
I
leadership.
didn't know that photos, captures essence of leadership and commitment.
And I'm wondering, is it the face of John Dramani Mahama? Is it what he's wearing? What really?
Maybe the flag behind him,
But,
or the
I mean,
green
that has
handkerchief
been-
in the breast pocket.
Yes, the pocket square, the green pocket square, and then the is it Spanish gray?
Spanish gray, yes.
Eesh.
That's the color.
But then it does not capture the nationality. It captures some Spanish nationality.
This is building and fostering international collaborations.
but this is a beautiful picture of
I
John Dramani
agree.
Mahama, by the way. I love the fact that he's smiling. I love the fact that you can see when you zoom in and you look at the head, you can tell clearly that this is a man who experience has had something to do with, and it's just captured beautifully. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana. And I love this particularly because it has the whole, African Ghanaian feel to his attire. And we've been talking about the what he wore for the inauguration.
Exactly.
And Matthew
That's
Agambire,
beautiful.
that beautiful
Your
one.
friend, just say that.
Oh, Matthew. Well, I like his Benz, by the way. Matthew Agambire says,
Matthew, Kodjo Mensah needs some new shirts.
oh, Tutuwaa, thank you.
Yeah.
Tutuwaa, thank you. I mean, some presidential, he calls himself the presidential atelier. I don't,
Well, he's lived up to that name,
Exactly,
by the way. But
exactly.
I just want to re-emphasize the fact that the statement says that.
So you have it. So those of you who are listening on radio and you've not seen the official portraits, it's on Starr. Like, we are streaming John Dramani Mahama's official portraits now. So when you go to the ministry, departments, agencies, this is the first picture you see there of this wonderful gentleman who is president of the land. He's the president, like, yes, president in that Spanish gray kaftan with the green pocket square. But the emphasis, Tutuwaa, like you said, has been on the fact that government says that it has not
and
will not contract any company or individual to produce this beautiful portrait and then distribute.
Which has replaced all of Akufo-Addo's photos, by the way.
And people should be very mindful. I've seen some videos I don't like. I mean, people are just like forcefully pulling down Akufo-Addo's picture.
That's
no,
wrong.
He's ex-president. So just remove that
take it
frame.
meticulously.
You see, remove it with some level of grace and respect, because it's not about the individual. It's the office that he
Exactly.
occupies. And as Ghanaians, we have a sense of respect for our leaders.
Elders.
And so yes, he's a former leader, but please, when you're taking out
He's
the
still
picture,
a leader.
take it. I mean, when we're calling former president, Akufo-Addo is also part of it.
Exactly.
His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And so that means that. And I remember when I saw the copy of the presidential portrait, the official portrait, Eko was asking, so does that mean that they should
Eko
download?
is our producer.
Yes, they should download the picture. The Ministries Department agency should download the picture and frame what really is the case, because government says it's not going to
I also want
distribute
to know-
anything. Yeah, so I think.
I mean, it will come from the covers of the various ministries.
But that can also be dangerous, because where I print my portrait is not where you print yours. maybe because of the
use your salary.
No, because of the reverence I have for John Dramani Mahama.
So put
I will decide that yes, I would want a very important and then quality print which will cost me about 1,000 cedis.
So use your money for that.
So the agency will use from the IGF 1,000 cedis to go and print portrait of John Mahama.
It shouldn't come from the agency. It should come from the individual's salaries.
But nothing was said about that.
Listen, so use your discretion to do this one. But it shouldn't be.
My discretion is that I like the picture so much. I respect John Dramani Mahama. I want to give him quality output, and quality output cost me 1,000 Ghana cedis.
Do that.
Whose salary?
Yours.
Who is the yours?
I mean, the heads of the various ministries.
No, but it's not for them. It's for the ministry. It's for the department. It's for the agency.
To show appreciation that Mahama has appointed me into office. I just want to.
But what has been the norm though? What has been the practice with presidential portraits? What has been the practice? They print and circulate. Right. Yeah. So now this government says we will not do it. So now you to go and do it. Okay, we'll add it to the budget.
He want to bear extra costs.
We'll add it to the budget.
Look at our financial status. We don't need that right now.
But that's the thing. So there should be clarity. So if that's the case, how should they go about it?
Use your salary.
Which salary?
The leaders of the ministries.
Please stop that. Stop that. Well, let the conversation continue on our Facebook platform. Let us know what you also think about the presidential portrait and the directive that the state or the government will not and has not and will not contract any company or individual to do bulk purchasing and then provision to onward delivery to them. So. Do you need to have one? Okay, this is not a government agency, by the way. Well,
but if you like him, you can just download.
My name is Joshua Kodjo Mensah, and I plead the fifth when it comes to this. But I've been doing this with.
I'll finish my point. If you like him, all
right. Her name is Tutuwaa Danso.
Okay, Tutuwaa Danso. Thank you very much for your time. For more news updates, visit starfm.com.gh. This bulletin was produced by Eko Anand and very stubborn Benjamin Saki.
Who refused to give us water.
Exactly. Emmanuel Donko made sure the stream was possible. On Facebook, we are back tomorrow with more news updates. Have a good evening.
2025.